I'm just going to say again for whoever's listening what we are all about and why we're doing this video. I got inspired to speak to ordinary people who have extraordinary stories. And the reason why I am doing this is because I watch a lot of podcasts, and I'm always finding that everybody wants to speak with famous people to find out what their secrets are to success, as if everybody can reach that level if they just follow these steps that they talk about. And the reality is that most people do not become super famous and super rich, and yet they manage to find a path that works for them, that makes them happy. And those are the stories I want to talk about. So if anybody knows someone who wants to tell their story, please have them contact me. And today we are interviewing Sara Hill, and I am going to start, Sara, with the very beginning, where you were raised. And you're a creative person, and I want to know more about what inspired you towards your creative goals. So
I grew up on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, on
Okay.
100th Street and West End, at a time when the Upper West Side was not gentrified. The building was filled with Holocaust survivors, mostly from Germany, and artists, musicians. Joel Meyerowitz, who's a very famous photographer, lived a couple of floors down. I babysat for them. Mary Sawyer, who's the daughter of Moses Sawyer, lived in the building. I babysat for them, and she had quite a few of her father and uncle's paintings on the wall. And my mother was a painter as well,
Okay.
not full time.
I actually know the area well because I lived on 106th and West End. No, it was on Broadway.
Right. My brother actually cooked when he was going to City College. He cooked in a restaurant called The Balcony, and that's where he learned how to. He supported himself through college, and he learned how to cook and became an executive chef.
Oh,
It's
wow.
another story.
Okay.
But my mother was highly, highly creative. She also was an actress, and so she would take us to a lot of theater. Friends of hers were in Broadway, off Broadway, and she would take us to a children's theater called the Paper Bag Players that left a real indelible mark, because they would do shows using just literally paper bags and boxes, cardboard boxes, and do these incredible stories. So this was in New York at a time when you can afford to go to the theater, and and my mother would do creative, crafts with us. We always made, I remember doing little sculptures. She would get clay, and we would do little sculptures and paint them and kind of bake them. And she was always doing creative arts and crafts with us.
Okay. So at what point, or did you always know that this is who you were? An artist, or was there a certain period in your life, or a teacher or a mentor that put you on that path, the specific path, which I would say is you decided you were going to be a musician, right?
Yeah, and I don't consider myself an artist. I consider myself a creative.
Okay, that's fine. I say it's the same thing, but that.
So it's very interesting how I actually went into dance first. My mother would send us to this dusty old studio at Carnegie Hall. My sister and I would take the number 5 bus down Riverside Drive, across 72nd Street, and then down, and then across to Carnegie Hall. And this was at a time when we were like 10 years old, 11 years old, and my dad would give us like a dime or bus fare, and we would go on our own. And this dusty old dance studio with a ballet, we would take ballet, And there was Georges Chaffet, his name was, and he would be sitting in this. We would have to kind of curtsy to him, and he would be sitting in this red velvet, like extremely fancy living room, and we would have to go past him upstairs to go to the dance studio, and he had pictures of dancers he had danced with, and it was right in the Carnegie Hall building, right on 56th Street, like around the corner. And so we always did dance, and then in high school I actually studied Afro-Brazilian dance and really loved it. So dance was always a very important part of my life.
So did you want to become a dancer professionally?
I did study samba, and I was getting good to the point where, the woman who was leading the class might have included me, but it was I've always shied away from intense competitive situations.
Mm-hmm.
I did it for the joy, I did it for the pleasure, and that the same thing happened with music, which I'll tell you about as well.
So you studied music in college?
No, actually I was in a very rough middle school called Junior High School 118, Joan of Arc on 93rd Street. And I was placed in the orchestra, originally on cello. And all of my friends were studying flute. And I wanted to switch over. And it was a very, very chaotic, violent school. And so my haven was the orchestra. And my orchestra teacher did not want me to switch over to flute because she thought I was talented on cello. And she actually had my mother come. My mother never was involved in my school. Like, she was no PTA mom. She had her own career at that point. She was finishing college and working. But she had my mother come in and listen to me play because she wanted my mother to convince me not to switch over to flute.
Okay.
And I think my mother made a big mistake and said, no, she should play whatever she wants to play. And I probably would be a professional musician, possibly be a professional musician now, because flutes are, dime a dozen.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're a dime a dozen. So I ended up studying flute, and my mother found a private teacher for me.
But can I stop you for a second? What was it about flute that was it because everybody else was playing it, or was
it was like a girly thing.
Okay.
It was more girly than cello, and
cello is so beautiful.
I know. It was one of those mistakes that I kind of made in a way that put me on in a different trajectory.
Okay.
I don't know if I would have been happy as a classical cellist, frankly. You never know.
Exactly.
Right? So my mother got me a flute teacher who happened to be a professor at Manhattan School of Music. And she also was a composer, Kitty Hoover. And so she got me playing, classics, but she also had me doing Hindemith and more modern composers. And so I went to Manhattan School of Music Prep, and I would there was a performance class where you had to prepare a piece and get up, and I played this Hindemith piece and actually got a scholarship.
Wow.
Yeah, and at that point I got into the High School of Music and Art, which was a real escape for me from a very, very bad middle school. And actually towards the end I was cutting class a lot because it was violent. It was a violent school. But I got into High School Music and Art, and it just kind of blossomed, and I was in the orchestra, and I made lots of friends who were musicians. We had like a little string quintet with me as the flute, and I just did so many creative things at that school. It was just my blossoming. And at the time, and then I was studying, definitely practicing a lot, and thinking I was going to go into conservatory. But at the time, unless you played like Jean-Pierre Rampal, I don't know if folks remember him, he was a virtuoso flute player, and unless you studied 5 hours a day, practiced 5 hours a day, it was extremely difficult to get into conservatories. And I like to go with my buddy to the Carnegie Hall Cinema and see like old movies with him. You know, we would see Fellini movies and Truffaut movies. We would cut school and just go hang out and go to museums. And so I had a more rich, diverse life than just kind of narrowly focused.
Right.
And, you know, I was good. But then when it came to audition, I wasn't good enough. So I auditioned for, I think, 3 conservatories. I didn't even get into Manhattan Prep. So I had to take off a year. And I worked at a music recording studio for a songwriting team, Jerry Lieber and Mike Stoller, who wrote pretty famous pop hits like Nothing But a Hound Dog and Splish Splash for the Coasters, and yeah, pretty famous. And I was there, I organized their tape library. It was a reel-to-reel tape library, and I sat in the back in a little room, and I listened to a lot of, they had bought a catalog from Nashville, and I listened to a lot of like gospel hillbilly stuff, and just kind of fell in love with it. Gospel cowboy, like who knew? So I actually got really well educated in kind of more popular old-timey music, as well as the classical. I was practicing to try to audition again, and my mother said, you need to apply for an academic school as well as a conservatory. And I did. I didn't audition because I didn't apply for their music program at Ithaca College, which has actually a pretty good music program. I applied as an English major.
Okay, and this was because she wanted you to have something more stable, I'm guessing.
She wanted me to get into college. You know, college was, you know, high value in my family. The expectation was I'd go on to college. And so I didn't get into, I got pretty close at New England Conservatory. I was like second string. And that was actually such a great audition. You know, they treat you pretty poorly in these auditions, but New England Conservatory actually they were like really nice. And under those circumstances, I was able to play. I mean, as it is, I was not that comfortable with the high pressure. It's very competitive. I wasn't enjoying it as much as I should be with the, you know, focus on competing and, you know, not really getting into the music as much as
for the sake of the music itself. It was more about the competition
at that point,
and that's what turned you off.
Yeah, and so I didn't get into New England. I think I applied to another one and didn't get in. So I ended up going to Ithaca College as an English major.
Okay.
And I didn't pick up the flute again.
Wow. So something really hurt you that made you do that.
Yeah,
right?
I was pissed off. And plus my flute got stolen by my neglect. I had a very, very valuable flute that my grandmother had bought for me. It was a Haynes flute, and I had been working as a student worker at this remedial reading program at the school to help pay my tuition, and I left my flute there on the shelf because someone had wanted to take a look at it to see if it needed repair or whatnot, and the next day it was gone.
Oh.
They hadn't locked the office.
Still.
So that's
surprising that a musician would do that.
Yeah, I was a bit neglectful back in those days anyway. I guess I just didn't take it as seriously as if I had wanted to be a professional musician, I would have taken a few things more seriously. But I had a lot of other issues and other interests at the time.
Okay, so you studied English.
I was an English literature major.
And how did that work for you?
Well, I'd always been a huge reader, and I was focusing. I found this professor I really loved who I took a couple independent studies with him. I really was focusing on American women writers, or American like Twain. I just loved Twain and 19th century. But I didn't really want to go into the academic world. I did things like, because Ithaca at the time, like I was in English classes with people that really just didn't even love literature. I mean, it was like a school for kind of rich kids whose parents paid for their education, and they kind of landed in the English department, and I felt quite odd. So I eventually found a group of people that I connected with, and we actually did things like we did No Exit. I never directed before, so we put on a production of No Exit by Sartre in the school chaplain, in the school chapel. I had a radio show called Sing We Enchant It that was all about medieval and Renaissance. It was all medieval and Renaissance music.
Okay.
So I did have creative outlets, even though I wasn't performing.
Okay, so you never thought that you would go into writing or that kind of...
I always, well, as an English major, you have to write a lot.
Okay.
But I never thought, like my father had been a writer, my brother was a writer, like my father was a kind of a frustrated, failed writer. My brother ended up writing a lot and still is writing science fiction mostly. But I never thought of myself as like a novelist, or I mean, I just wrote academic papers. And even in grad school, I was mostly writing academic papers.
Okay.
It only wasn't until much later that I was thinking I wanted to write either a memoir or a kind of historical novel about my family, when I found out more about my family in Germany and what happened to them during the Holocaust. So that's when I started veering a little bit more to nonfiction, to fiction as opposed to non. But yeah, I've written for my jobs, for my career. I write a lot, and it's all nonfiction. It's academic. It's research. Because I went on to get a doctorate in education.
So now, how did we get to that next step for you? You went from English literature
to education,
and so you graduated with a degree in that,
right?
At your bachelor's,
yeah.
And then what happened that made you change?
So I was working as a secretary at an agency called the Population Council. It's an NGO.
Okay, so you didn't go do your master's right away.
No, I didn't want to go into do my master's right away. So I was working as a secretary for other researchers. I worked for an anthropologist and an epidemiologist. And this was right when the computers started coming in.
And so you were in Manhattan?
Yeah, they were in Manhattan on East 47th Street.
Okay.
And I was...
Still a very creative place to be at that time.
It was really international because of its proximity to United Nations.
Okay.
Yeah, it was really very international. So I was not into the arts at that point at all, not playing anything, not doing anything artistically. But at some point I said to myself, I'm really tired of typing up other people's research papers. I'd like to do my own research.
Okay.
And then at the same time
Could I just ask? Sorry. When you were working as a secretary, did you feel that need to express yourself creatively, and did that hit you hard every day that you were doing that?
No.
No. Interesting.
No.
Okay.
I channeled it in a different direction, the creativity. That's what I think.
Okay.
So I started volunteering at Literacy Volunteers of New York, which is an adult literacy program. And I got trained, and I fell in love with teaching. Even though I'd always told people when I heard I was an English major, they would say, "Are you going to teach?" And I was like, no. But actually, when I think about it, some of my favorite teachers were in high school. My favorite people were English teachers, literature teachers, and they were good teachers. And so I actually fell in love with teaching as a literacy volunteer. And I applied to Harvard to their Master's in Education program. And I was gobsmacked that I got in.
Okay.
So I went off to Cambridge and lived with a bunch of Europeans from Spain, from Amsterdam, all going to either MIT, Harvard. One was on a Fulbright, Spanish economist. And I had a marvelous couple of years, like an amazing couple of years with this group of people, and living at this old house in Cambridgeport and studying at Harvard, which I found to be incredibly mind-blowing. Like, it was like my first experience with like first-rate education. I had an amazing time. So then after not doing anything.
How many years before you got into that program?
I would say a couple of years. I was working
Okay.
as a secretary. I think I was living at home. I actually can't remember where I was living. I might have been living in Brooklyn at that point. And then so I went to Harvard, got my master's, and then got my first professional job, which was back in New York, in the Bronx, and I became the director of an adult literacy program at a library in the Bronx on Fordham Road, off of Fordham Road, the Bainbridge Library in the Bronx. And so the children's room at night became an adult literacy program. So I recruited and trained volunteers and just became the coordinator of this literacy program. And I did that for a couple of years. And
how many people were you educating on a daily basis?
So we would have, 15 to 20 people a night. They were working. A lot of them were working during the day as home aides.
So mostly immigrants?
No, actually,
No?
there were quite a few who grew up in the American South and never had the money to go to school, or didn't have the clothes to go to school, or were kept home on the farm to work. And I had a few immigrants, but mostly African American, some Latinos born here, who just were passed through the school system if they were up here in the north, and they never had any kind of early intervention. And others who grew up in the rural South and just,
How did they get to New York?
Well, there was a great migration.
Okay.
Yes, there's always been this migration from the South to the North, and they came up north and, got work, but they never were able to get ahead because of their literacy levels or educational levels. So I work with the most beginning level students and then they went all the way up to people who were about ready to take their GED.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That must have been very rewarding.
Yes, and that's why I say it was kind of a creative outlet for me.
Right.
Teaching became that kind of, there's a creative aspect to teaching. I mean, I'll never forget, I was working just with the beginning level readers, like we're talking real beginners. And I read their eyes were watching God by Nora Zeal Hurston, which was written a lot in dialect, and it's a really amazing novel. And then I would do something called language experience. After I would read a chapter, we would talk about it, and I would write down what they said about it, and we would use that as the reading material. It's called language experience. So like I was able to do like really creative educational activities with the students. I would do puzzles, games, So it was really very much a creative outlet for me.
Okay, and how long did you have that job?
So I did that for 2 or 3 years, and then I got hired at what's called an intermediary. So it was a city-funded agency called Literacy Assistance Center that actually did training for all of the city-funded adult literacy programs. So it was the 3 libraries, it was community colleges, it was the Board of Ed programs. So what we did is we designed and delivered training for the teachers in those programs.
Interesting. Okay, so during this time, it sounds like you were having fun.
I was having fun,
Okay.
you know, and you know, having an abusive, you know, marriage at the same time, but
Okay.
you know, you treading water
Right.
sometimes. But
Mhm.
yeah, my professional life was extremely rich.
Wow.
Right.
Nice. Okay. And though you didn't do what you thought you would, which was be a musician,
Or be a teacher.
Or
I didn't
be a
think I would be a
teacher.
teacher.
you ended up finding something that really sparked your, you know, and that's what I find fascinating.
Right.
Is that you don't have to necessarily get to do what you originally thought you were going to do or what maybe you dreamed of doing, but this kept you busy and also made you feel
Fulfilled.
happy and fulfilled and
Creatively. Yeah.
Okay, so you did that for about 3 years.
No, I was actually so 3 years at the literacy program, about 3 years at the intermediary literacy assistance center, and then I was married. I had a baby who was kind of that was when I picked up the recorder. So the summer I got pregnant, we were upstate, and I picked up the penny whistle. Oh, no, I'm sorry. When I was in graduate school, one of my roommates played alto recorder, or no, soprano recorder. So we decided we were going to, in between studying, we were going to play duets. So I taught myself alto recorder, which is very, very similar to a flute.
Okay.
And she played soprano, and then we ended up playing duets and having a ball. So then the summer that I was married and I was with my husband upstate, I picked up the penny whistle and a book, and I was teaching myself penny whistle. So like I was slowly kind of and I felt a need to play music.
Okay.
And I slowly re-entered because playing duets with my friend, with my housemate was so much fun.
Okay.
I was like, oh, this is great. I want to do this again. I want to keep that in my life. So
I'm curious about this. Was the driving force for you to pick up the instrument again about you just wanting to be really good at it because you practiced it so much, or it was something else?
No, it was definitely something else.
Okay.
Yeah, no, being really, really good at it was not on my bingo my bingo card. It was more enjoying the music, playing with someone, so you're not alone, having that interaction and when with your parts, the harmonies, the melodies. Yeah, we were playing Baroque. We were playing Bach, Telemann.
Wow.
Yeah, we were playing,
That's
having a good time.
complicated stuff.
It's actually I find things. Telemann is, to me, Telemann is kind of easy.
Okay, compared to Bach, maybe.
Bach is a little more technically hard, but not impossible. But remember, I had a pretty high level of technique.
In flute.
Yeah. Did not want to play flute again. No more. Drop it.
Wow.
But I loved the recorder. I liked the sound of the recorder, the woodiness of it, and I really loved it.
Okay.
So yeah, that's been kind of a thread throughout.
Okay. Interesting. So now what happens next?
So I have a little baby. I have a son. I'm married, and I had my master's, and I felt kind of stuck where we were. I was living in a kind of roach-infested walk-up in Astoria. My ex-husband worked for the Parks Department and was not interested in moving up or doing anything. Just kind of like, so I felt stuck. So I applied for doctoral programs.
Wow.
In
You're
education.
ambitious, Sara.
I applied.
With a baby.
He was about 1.5, 2,
That's
baby.
Still, yeah.
It's funny because I would try to play penny whistle and he would grab it out of my mouth. He just didn't want me to like take the attention away from him. So that was on hold. Music was on hold. So I got into Vanderbilt, the School of Ed, Peabody College at Vanderbilt. And we moved lock, stock, and barrel down to
Right.
Nashville. And my marriage broke up, and I was left with a 3-year-old going to full-time graduate program. And what was interesting about Nashville, though, in terms of music, the music scene, this was back in the late, so my son was born in 93, so this is the mid-90s. And it still is today, this total music
Yeah.
mecca, but it wasn't just country music. Like, I wasn't that interested in country music. But I did like bluegrass music.
Mm-hmm.
And we've discovered this wonderful place called the Station Inn off the beaten track. And I would hear what's her name? Not Carol Gilligan. I would hear amazing performers who were doing bluegrass, who were doing original songs, Gillian Welsh. So I was really, really turned, and my parents would play folk music on the record player when I was a kid. Joan Baez, Bob Dylan, Buffy St. Marie. So I was like, I really liked folk music, but down in Nashville, it was like, it blew my mind. And I would go into the pizza parlor with Daniel, my son, and there would be a singer-songwriter, standing there and performing. Like, it was really music. It is Music City. So that was really nice to kind of.
I didn't realize the folk music was a thing there also.
Oh yes.
Okay.
Oh yes, because I was not really into country, but they have all kind of music. There was even a rock scene and alt rock, alternative music. It was big. It was everything. It was everything.
Okay, so you went there to do your PhD.
Right. My marriage broke up, and so my son really missed his dad, of course. And so I finished my coursework and I moved back to New York, and I moved in with my mom, who lived at the time in Greenwich Village. My ex-husband was back in Queens, because my son really needed to spend time with his dad. He was really close to him. So I moved back to New York, and I met my current husband, Michael. So yeah, and then what did I do? I got a job at another intermediary called Partnership for After School Education, and I worked there for a few years, and then I got a job at a private foundation called the Robert Bound Foundation.
Let's go back.
Okay.
One sec. Why did you feel that you needed to go get your PhD?
I'm a learner.
Okay.
I was bored. I had been out in the field working for 10 years straight, and I just felt like I needed to be intellectually challenged.
Okay.
I knew I did not want to be a college professor. That was not. But I was definitely a learner. I wanted to learn how to do certain things, and I was very lucky because when I went to Vanderbilt, they had just hired this professor called David Bloom, who was an educational ethnographer, it's a type of educational anthropology.
Okay.
And so I really kind of studied at his knee, and learned how to do ethnographies, that was a technique I used for my dissertation, for my doctorate.
Okay. So you got you felt that fulfilled you, that program. Okay.
Oh yeah. Not much of anything else was that good. Don't tell anyone. It's not the Harvard of the South, as they claim, because I could compare.
Right.
I know the difference, but yeah, I was very lucky that when I was there, David Bloom was there, and I was able to study with him, and yeah, he was my dissertation chair.
Okay. So you moved back to New York because you wanted your son to be closer to his father.
And I did my research for my dissertation up in New York.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then what did you think you were going to do upon getting this degree?
I was thinking I might want to work in a private foundation, which I did. But it was not. It was a really creative time in my life. We created many different programs. My professional career in community education, because I've never worked really have not worked as a school teacher. I've always done community-based education and professional development for educators, and I've always worked in that area. I think that was my professional career has been. I've published books, edited books, published articles. Like, I'm well known in my particular area, which is after school education. Like, I'm pretty well known in the field. I'm semi-retired and coming off of that. It's not something I'm doing, more the workforce development work that you know
because
about.
That's interesting. I didn't realize that you stayed in that field for that long.
Oh yeah, for decades.
Okay.
I was in that field for decades, and it was only kind of recently. Well, my last job was a bucket list job, and it took me about a year to get. Like, it's really hard to look for work at a certainly 50 and up. And I had, after the pandemic, I had been laid off of my job. I had been working at a nonprofit called SEO Family of Services. I was the educational director, and I had been laid off during the pandemic, and then it took me about a year of real pavement pounding to find my next and last job. It turned out to be my last full-time job, and it was a bucket list job. It was in an international NGO that runs international exchange programs. It's called IREX. And I was in charge of an evaluation team that was evaluating the Ford Foundation International Fellowship. So I had my own team. It was like the dream team. We were doing qualitative research, which is my thing, formative evaluation. It was a dream team. I was able to go to Jordan for work. I was able to go to Johannesburg for work.
Okay.
It was like my dream job. And then I did that for 2 years, and then the administration changed, and USAID got slashed, and IREX was about 95% funded by USAID.
This was just recently?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so IREX had to lay off 500 people.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was and at that point I was like, I don't want to go looking for work again. I'm going to pivot. Like a lot of people had to. Some people lost entire careers. I had just kind of lucked out to get this job at an international NGO and was able to do this amazing project, and it was just luck. But other people had lost entire careers in civil society work and pro-democracy work, and I see them on LinkedIn looking for work to this still.
Wow.
Yeah, and it basically decimated an industry, an entire industry. So that's when I pivoted. I started doing consulting work. I did an evaluation for Child Fund International of one of their US-based programs in Texas. And I did an evaluation of Habitat for Humanity. They have a fellowship program, which was cut in the middle because of the USAID, cuts. So I was only able to do half of it. So it was really that's been it's been a kind of pivotal. The last year was kind of a big pivot for me. And so I take consulting work, but I'm much more focused. I'm focusing now on more workforce development project.
Okay, which is what you're doing right now.
Right.
With JetBlue.
Well, it's not with JetBlue. It's a separate organization called Aviation Prep Academy.
Okay.
My husband works for JetBlue, and so we're we have connections with JetBlue, but
Okay.
nothing official. So but we are, it's a prep school basically, and we're preparing people for jobs in aviation that
Right.
don't require a BA, but
Right.
pay a living wage with full benefits.
And how do people contact you if they want to be a part of this program?
So we've been presenting at a place called Hempstead Works, which is a state-funded employment center, and we've done a couple of presentations, and we've gotten students that way. Also our fiscal conduit, because we're not a nonprofit, we don't really want to go down that road. Our fiscal conduit is a nonprofit called Hispanic Brotherhood, and they have a large network on the island and have sent out flyers, and so we're on our second cohort. We've been funded by M&T Bank for 3 cohorts, and our second cohort is already filled. So,
Great.
and we have people already for our 3rd cohort.
And how are they finding out about the program?
As I said, through either
The Hempstead Works?
either Hempstead Works
Right.
or through this Long Island Youth Board Network,
Okay.
through our fiscal, they're hearing about it.
All right.
Some of our first cohort, one of our students works at a library on the island, and he posted the flyer, and we got someone through that. So we're not having trouble finding students.
Are there plans to grow this endeavor? So when you do, you're going to want more people, right?
Well, what we're doing is we are looking into getting funding for 2 more programs that follow aviation, the Prep Academy.
Okay.
So one is a drone, getting the FAA drone certificate. It'll be a 3-day course, and then people will be prepared to take the test to get the drone license. And once you get the FAA drone license, you could get on a website and actually get work as a drone camera, like do things for real estate, do things for weddings, that kind of thing.
All right.
So that's the next one. And then my husband wants to do a dispatch course, which is a much longer, more intense course. It's 200 hours, and we're looking into funding that, because we don't want the students to pay. Like these courses, like the dispatch course, is about a $5,000 tuition.
Which is a lot of money for somebody who's looking to find work.
Right.
And that's
It is. It's a big investment, and there's no guarantee you're going to pass. You have to get tested by the FAA. But if you get a job as a dispatcher at an airline, you start at 90,000, and you can go up to about 130.
Okay.
So what we're doing is we're doing it so it's our prep program, which is 55 hours, is a prerequisite. And then once you graduate from that, get your diploma, you can apply, you can do the drone, and then eventually you can do the dispatch course.
So do you have a website or a Facebook page? Or
We do. We have a website called aviationprep.org, and it tells you a lot about what we do, and we have articles, we have a blog on there, and
all right, so don't get discouraged if you don't get into the program the first time. Maybe put yourself on a wait list, and you'll be considered for the next.
Absolutely, we have a wait list, and
or for when you grow the
yes, we're definitely we have a proposal into Hispanic Federation. We are talking to Hempstead Works about, they actually will fund students if you get approved by them, and they'll pay for the student tuition. So yes, we are definitely going to be growing.
Great,
it.
that sounds like a
and
wonderful.
Hiring others, so my husband and I can travel. We're going to definitely hire other instructors at some point, because my husband is finally going to retire in August, and we bought a sailboat, our 4th sailboat, and he's finally going to retire, and his first sail will be up to, he wants to go up to Nova Scotia on his own, which is quite ambitious, but he's going to do it.
All right.
So at the same time, in terms of music.
Yeah, I wanted to go back.
Let's go back to music.
You already did, because I want to know how you start. So Sara and I performed together in a band called Folkestra. It's Sara will talk more about it. I want to know how you started and how you were inspired to put this together.
So at my synagogue, I always wanted to do music at my synagogue. I was definitely in the choir for a minute, but I had always had a fantasy of putting together a temple group that could play at services. And because I'm Reformed, they have music at services a lot, and there's something called the Ruach service, which is more, contemplative, and it's more music oriented. There's no Devar Torah, which is the sermon, and so I always had my eye on doing that and getting getting musicians, volunteer musicians, at any nonprofit is a headache. But I was able to slowly put together some musicians who were coming to regular rehearsals, and we were able to get the cantor on board, and she actually would give us songs. So we discovered some really wonderful, an Israeli group, and she would find some really good religious songs for us to play, and then slowly but surely we got on the calendar. And we started playing Fridays once a month at the Ruach service. I at that time had started studying Doumbek, which is a Middle Eastern drum and frame drum. So I had gone to a concert by a group called Daughters of the Storm. I forgot the name of it. And this woman who's the lead performer came out and had a frame drum and sat there playing the frame drum, and I completely fell in love with it. Completely fell in love with it. So I found a teacher. I was looking for a frame drum teacher first. Couldn't find a frame drum teacher. It's not that common. Found a Doumbek. So the Doumbek is the goblet-shaped Middle Eastern and North African drum. They call it darbuka as well. And I found a teacher, and I would go to a belly dance studio because he would play for a belly dance class in the 50s on the upper west, on the 50s on the west side. Ironically, where I used to go study Afro-Brazilian dance, that same area. And I would go and study with him either before or after the belly dance class. And so, but he was one out of many, many darbuka teachers that I've studied with. And I found a frame drum teacher, and I've been studying it off and on for a long time. And so I was able to incorporate that instrument into the group that we called Sheer Harmony at the synagogue. I also played recorder. And that group kind of broke up. These groups always start and end and have kind of like a natural life. And after the group broke up, I studied with a really amazing recorder teacher for a while. But I have to say, I'm kind of a little all over the place. I want to play so many different things. And it's the same thing with the flute. If I had just focused narrowly on the flute, I would be in a very different place. I might be playing classical flute in an orchestra or whatnot. And then I would, but you have to put blinders on.
But that wasn't your path, and it's not who you are. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, sometimes I feel like I'm a little bit of a musical dilettante. Like, and sometimes I'll focus really, like I'll go to a drumming retreat. I've gone to drumming retreats upstate and, really, focus on the drum, and then, life happens and, I'm doing something else temporarily, and then I'll go back to drumming and, I see that workshop for frame drumming. I'm going to grab that one. And, so I just feel like, I guess, that's just who I am. Right?
And also you're an excellent curator and manager.
Well,
that's where you're what you're meant to be doing. I think, knowing you from this group, we would not have been able to do what we have accomplished without you. And I mean, you get us the bookings, you organized everything, you found the music, you had the vision for what we were going to be. And so I want you to talk a little bit more about that. And we are just making so much progress with this group, and the audience loves, and that's the sign of that you're doing something right.
So I think looking back musically, I have been in some very hostile and toxic environments. So certainly in at the Manhattan School of Music, the competitive nature of it was
Classical music is hard.
It's very toxic, and it's not my thing. I'm not. People think I'm competitive. I'm not competitive at all, and I shy away from competition. I just, I'm gonna get good at something. I'm not thinking about you. I'm thinking about me, and but that's kind of plagued me a lot of my life. Is that I think I have threatened people by getting really good at certain things. As a woman in particular, you get really threatened. People can get threatened. In community-based education, I know how to do community building. I have skills in that, and so relations became as important as the music. And I think the audience feels it. And in fact, after our last performance, people came up and said, that interaction between you was so enjoyable. Right? And it's our relationship. We can just joke with each other and like, oh, that's our Wendy doing an amazing job, and it's very positive and supportive. And I think I brought back those bad experiences that I had in classical music and synagogue life. Unfortunately, I brought that lessons learned into this group. So the vision was, to celebrate world cultures. I love world music, and to share that with other people who may not have been exposed to it. Like my background is very multicultural. I studied Afro-Caribbean dance and Afro-Brazilian dance and music. I went to Brazil and studied there. So my background is very, very diverse. I've been exposed to lots of different cultures and lots of different music. So I want to just share that with other people, the appreciation and the beauty of it. I mean, I'm a little worried about cultural appropriation. That worries me. But I feel like if we are celebrating and sharing and being respectful of the music, that we can skirt that a little bit more.
And it's not like we are taking one culture and deciding that's who we are.
Right.
We are taking a little bit from every country and putting it together as this
beautiful tapestry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a learning experience for the audience as well. And I found it really interesting how they had so many questions about the different instruments that we were playing.
Right. And I think I'm also bringing in my background as an educator.
Right.
And, trying to balance that. People don't want to hear a lecture for sure, but, bringing in some background about, okay, this piece, from Haiti actually has a backstory to it that's political, and doing the research was fun for me, and so I think kind of like all of these threads in a way kind of come together with Folkestra, and finding a community, a creative community with you and all the bandmates is really important to me, and that feeds me. And I know feeds you creatively.
Absolutely.
I am known to be a curator. Like I do a lot of research on the songs, and if something, hits
Right.
me, I'm like, oh, that's it.
Right.
And I'm actually kind of known for that.
Mhm.
I did that back at the synagogue. There was another band that I was in after the band at the synagogue and before Folkestra, that I was in, and it was mostly Sephardic and
Mhm.
Mizrahi music. So Mizrahi is Middle Eastern Jewish
Mhm.
music, and so I was actually the one that found the songs, the Sephardic songs, and I just would research and listen, and
Mhm.
so yeah, doing that kind of curation is, I think, so much fun, and I really enjoy it. I
Mhm.
can't wait to get into the
Keep
next
going.
song. Yeah.
So tell our audience how they can find out more about Folkestra.
So we
And
do have a Facebook page. We don't have a website, and I'm thinking we might want to put together a website,
Okay.
but we definitely have a Facebook page. It's basically Folkestra, and you could easily, join.
Mhm.
So yeah, and so one of the things we're taking we've been actually getting a lot of gigs,
Yeah.
like one month after another, and
Yeah.
we're all taking a little break now. But one of the things that I'm interested in is there's a reverend, a new clergy member for a local church,
Mhm.
and he's very interested in doing some kind of peace and understanding concert and possibly conference.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and so I've met with him one time. I'm meeting with him and his music director in a couple of weeks for the spring. So for spring of 2026, there may be something big coming. But
oh great.
yeah, I can't really. It's not there yet, but we
Okay.
definitely want to do more library gigs.
Yeah.
That's a great venue for
All right.
for the
So
group.
libraries, if you're, it not only is it a fun musical experience, but it's also educational.
Yeah, and interactive.
Yeah. And where else do you see us performing in the future?
Maybe folk festivals.
Okay.
Maybe, I mean, we're not like our folk is, I mean, we're international
Yes.
folk. So it's not going to be like Americana. Like
Right.
we have a couple of Americana songs, but so we need maybe to find kind of a more international type of festival,
Right.
as opposed to kind of a strictly folk festival, because
Right.
that's
Which
going to be
most people associate folk music with American.
right. But we're doing other things.
Right. Although I would say that the people, the audience, seems to be very knowledgeable in folk music, and they still loved what we did, even though maybe it wasn't what they expected, right? Okay,
Yeah.
great.
So again, it's all about respecting the music, respecting the genre. You can definitely fiddle around with, no pun intended, with some of the songs, but there's always it's a balance. It's finding that balance.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what else would you like to say about that?
Well, I'm incredibly blessed.
Yeah.
I feel this is the culmination. I'm able to bring in so much from my past and my skills, and it's a little weird being, I mean, I think I am. I consider myself, instead of like a band leader, I consider myself to be a manager. Like, I'm not that comfortable. I don't feel like as knowledgeable about music as perhaps some others in the group.
Oh, you're knowledgeable.
I know, but it's like I flunked out of music theory when I was at Manhattan Prep. I should have played piano. I don't know. Flutists tend not to be really well versed in kind of music theory and composition, with the exception of my first flute teacher, Ginny, who was a composer. But I feel very blessed. I feel very lucky. I think luck has a lot to do with it, that I lucked out by meeting you, by meeting other members of the band who are committed. That's like the hardest thing, that's the toughest nut to crack. Is
Yeah.
people have incredibly busy lives,
Yeah.
and we're not getting paid
Right.
a lot for this. And so to get people to
We're
commit,
not doing it for the money. Hear that?
we're not. It'd be nice. It's nice getting a little
Yes,
dough,
it is.
but things are going to fall into place. I mean, if people want to give us money, we'll take the money, but we're not doing it for the money. We're doing it for the joy. We're doing it to share the music.
We love music.
And we love each other.
And it's nice to get together with other musicians.
I know.
And create something.
I know.
And I am so proud of what we've done because I'm thinking back to what we started with.
Yeah.
And where we were at our last concert, which was just, it was so good.
Yeah. It was, major leaps forward.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I also, I think that, some people think of rehearsals as, oh, I have to go to rehearsal.
No.
I think of it, oh, I can't wait.
Yeah.
I'm like, we're taking a break, and I'm like, no, I don't want to take a break. I want to get together again and play music, So it's not a chore for me, and I don't think for other people.
No, I don't think so.
But certainly, through 3 of our group members work full time.
Right.
And it's hard for them, but they're still very committed to the process.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and we are also looking for a possible violinist, right? So if anybody plays
or
record
clarinet player
or saxophone,
right?
Please
Reach
contact
out.
Sara. And how does someone contact you?
Well, on Facebook, you could just private message me.
Okay.
That's probably the easiest way. Folkestra has an email address that I can't remember offhand.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would, if you're on Facebook, or you can get in touch. Should I give my telephone number? I don't mind. Or
if anybody's interested in either booking us
or playing with
us, how about your email address?
Yeah, sure. Sara, Sara, Louisa, Louisa, Hill, Hill @gmail.com.
Okay, great. Sara, that was great. Thank you so much.
It was so nice talking with you.
And we'll see each other soon.
Yes,
right?
we'll see each other at next rehearsal.